Morning, everybody. This is the Planning Construction meeting of November 10th. First item, number 1, roll call.
Okay, trustee Sperber,
Here.
trustee Carey,
Here.
trustee Rose,
Present.
and trustee Gianoli.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Item number 2, public comments. Do we have any public comments?
No, we have no public comments.
Wonderful. Moving right along. Item number 3 is approval of minutes. Would anybody have any comments or like to make a motion?
Move to approve as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any other additional comments? All right, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Looks like unanimous on that tough vote. Next item's coming up. Now we have the real projects. Item number 4 are items for review before and recommendations to the board. First item is 4.1. My friend Amanda is going to give us a little presentation.
Good
Morning,
morning.
Amanda.
Let me get my screen up here. All right, can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Perfect. So good morning, Amanda Twitchell, Senior Project Manager for the Airport Authority. Just wanted to let you know, I also have Garrett McFarlane on the call here, just in case he's from JBT. So just in case you have any questions at the end of the presentation, I'm sure he'll be happy to answer those. So I will be presenting the construction contract for the Passenger Boarding Bridge Replacement Project, Phase 2. The project consists of the replacement of 5 passenger boarding bridges located on Concourse B at gates B4, B6, B8, B9, and then on Concourse C on gate C11. These are the oldest bridges here at R&O. They were originally installed in 1998, and so they have reached the end of their useful life at this point. Some of the reasons for replacement include ADA compliance, outdated technology, and increased maintenance. With most equipment, the longer you have it, more issues start to arise and it becomes harder to find replacement parts. Getting into a little bit more detail of what we'll be getting, all 5 bridges will have electromechanical operation, which is what we have on all of our existing bridges on our airfield right now. Some of the new technology and security features include card readers, which will require any badged employee to swipe in order to operate the bridge. Interior cameras, which will allow views inside the bridge, which we do not currently have in these bridges. VoIP phones and touchscreen controls. A new feature that we don't have on a lot of our other bridges is also regional jet platforms, which you can see in the picture in the lower right there. And basically this allows smaller aircraft to utilize the bridge without additional adapters and things like that. So it just increases the flexibility of each bridge. And then a nice thing is we will be able to reuse the existing foundations for these bridges, which obviously reduces the cost and reduces headaches for me. So. Some of the project milestones to date include a design request for qualifications, which was advertised in January of this year. We then issued a design professional services agreement with Aero Systems Engineering in May of this year. They completed their design between May and September, and the bid was then advertised on September 17th of this year. We subsequently opened the bids on October 8th of this year. We received 2 bids, one from Aero Bridge Works, seen here as ABW, and one from John Bean Technologies, seen here as JBT. At the time of the bid opening, ABW was actually the apparent low bidder. As you can see, they were approximately $158,000 lower. But during a more thorough review of their bid, we found an irregularity, which required us to deem them non-responsive. And at that time, we deemed JBT our lowest responsive bidder. As you can see here, we had the base bid as well as 3 bid group alternates. Bid group alternate 1 was for the RJ platforms that I discussed. Alternate 2 was for new extended corridors, and alternate 3 was for refurbished extended corridors. And those were just organized in a manner just in case we came in over our budget. As you will see in the next slide, we came in well under our budget. And so we were able to accept bid alternates number 1 and number 2, and we did not select bid alternate number 3 for the refurbished extended corridors. So our program budget here includes design that was already awarded at approximately $328,000, construction, which is what we're looking to award at $3,609,570. Construction management at $71,000 will be my next presentation. And then we have other direct costs, which includes administrative costs and advertisements, and then reserves for anything that could possibly come up during construction at just under $1 million, for a total estimated completion of $4,977,000. This program is fully funded by passenger facility charge number 14. Our anticipated project timeline includes bid award, hopefully here in November. Following that will be a notice to proceed for procurement for 112 consecutive calendar days from November to March of 2021. Following that, construction would run for 80 consecutive calendar days from March 2021 to June of 2021. And that consists of each bridge being down for 16 calendar days. And no two bridges on a concourse will be down at a time. And yeah, on one concourse, I'm make sure I said that right. And we'll make sure that we coordinate all this with airlines prior to and during construction. And that brings us to our recommendation. It is hereby moved that the board authorizes the president CEO to execute a construction contract for the passenger boarding bridge replacement project phase 2 at Reno Tahoe International Airport with John Bean Technologies Corporation in the amount of $3,609,570 and authorizes the president CEO or his designee to sign. Any questions?
Thank you, Amanda. Any questions?
I have
Committee
one quick,
members?
I have one easy question. I'm
Great.
sure it's in my paperwork
ahead.
here somewhere, but I can't find it. Where is that company based out of?
GBT,
Mm-hmm.
it's out of Utah.
Utah. Do they have any local presence at all?
No. And Garrett, do you want to speak more to GBT? Is he on mute?
Yeah, I kept clicking on the little microphone. That's not what I need.
Go ahead.
Yes, we don't have a local presence in Reno or in Nevada. We have maintenance operations around the country as well as our manufacturing operation in Ogden, Utah. So we do have between the maintenance group and the network of installers, that's how we service our equipment after contract or after installation, excuse me.
Thank
So
you.
they are the manufacturer. Sorry, I'll just chime in too. They are the actual manufacturer of the bridges. And so they manufacture out of Ogden, Utah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from committee members? All right, sounds great. Let's call for the vote. Would anybody like to make a motion here?
Mr. Chair, I would
Yeah.
move for the approval and recommendation to the full board.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a first and second. Any other comments from committee members? Okay, without that, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? None there. Unanimous. Thank you, and the project is approved. or will be recommended for approval to the board.
Great.
All right, Maya, let's go to item number 4.2. Amanda, you're on again. This is the
All right.
CM for that same project we're talking. Go ahead.
Yes. All right. Good morning again.
Morning.
I will I will be presenting the amendment number 4 to the 2020 annual construction management services with Atkins. And this is related to the passenger boarding bridge replacement project phase 2 that I just presented. And I have Joe Momola on the call if you have any questions for Atkins. Oh, let me start first. Sorry. I have several slides that will run through what CM services are and how we selected Atkins and things like that. I can run through them if you'd like. You've heard them before. Otherwise, I can skip to what's pertinent to this contract.
Unless somebody's got some comments, I agree. We've kind of know what the CM is and we kind of know who.
One thing I will note too, this is the last year of Atkins' current contract.
Right.
We issued an RFQ in August. We received SOQs, we reviewed them, and I believe that the selection for the 2021 to 2023 services will be coming to you next month. So, all right, well, I will jump
And maybe
to.
you should go why, Amanda, you wanted to get this approved under the old versus the new. I'm sure that's one of the.
Sure. Yeah. Even though construction doesn't start until next year, there's a lot of services that Atkins provides before actual construction actually starts. And so,
Right.
kicking off right away, they'll be doing a lot of administrative services. So we wanted to be able to get them under contract right away to start those services.
Thank you. I'd gone through that with Chris, but I wanted the rest of the members to understand why this is going under the old versus the new. Thank you.
Great. Yes, thank you. All right, so you see here in this chart, the 2020 annual work plan. So at the top there for $49,000 was the original contract for this year that was awarded to Atkins, followed by 3 amendments, one for the RNO runway project, one for the STED taxiway alpha and aircraft apron project, and then amendment 3 for the RNO electric ground support charging stations. And this will be amendment number 4 for the passenger boarding bridge replacement project phase 2 for $71,000 for a total of $1,722,465. So again, this will be the CM services for the passenger boarding bridge replacement project phase 2, which, as we discussed, consists of the replacement of 5 passenger boarding bridges located at gates B4, B6, B8, and B9, and then C11. The total program budget, as we discussed, is designed at a little over $328,000 that was awarded. We're hoping to award construction at $3.6 million. Construction management services, we're looking to award here at $71,000. And then other direct costs and reserve for just under $1 million for a total estimate at completion of $4,977,000. Again, this amendment number 4, as well as the entire passenger boarding bridge replacement project, is funded by the passenger facility charge number 14. And that leads me to my recommendation. It is hereby moved that the board authorize President CEO to execute amendment number 4, passenger boarding bridge replacement project phase 2 to the professional services agreement for the 2020 annual construction management services for the Airport Capital Improvement Plan at Reno Tahoe International Airport with Atkins North America, Inc. in the amount of $71,000 for a total of $1,722,465, and authorizes the President, CEO, or his designee to sign. Any questions?
Thank you, Amanda. Committee members, questions, comments?
Short, sweet, and right to the point.
Boy, we are right to the point here. All right, would somebody like to make a motion then?
I'll move to approve as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I have a first and second. Any more comments? Well, we're just moving right along, guys. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Pass unanimous. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Amanda. Anyway, all right, let's go on to item number 5. And item number 5, again, are items that we've decided to keep standing on a standing committee. First item is 5.1, which is the actual capital improvement schedule. And I think Chris is going to present on this one. Is that correct, Chris?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair Sperber, trustees, and Mr. Griffin. Pleasure to be here this morning. Chris Cobb, Manager of Engineering and Construction. I believe you can see our current schedule up there. Can you not?
Yes.
Okay. So the 2 items to highlight here is the terminal development concourse planning study. The intent is to bring that to you in December. And additionally, what the action you just took for this to go to the board was the Passenger Boarding Bridges Phase 2, with the intent for that to be approved by the board this coming Thursday. Additionally, if you notice, we kind of shifted the schedule here so you can see into 2021. While it's not highlighted there, your second row from the top, just showing you that the runway project kicking back up again in March of 21. So those are the big items I really wanted to highlight here for you on the schedule that have occurred. I'd be happy to answer any other questions that any of you may have.
Again, short and sweet. Any comments, anybody? All right, that's great. Let's go on to the next items. 5.2 is a CONRAC. And it looks like, Chris, you're still up, and I guess Brad's going to help some. Thank you.
All right, hopefully you see a slideshow here. And I would like to identify that Ms. Amy Barnes, Bob O'Neill, both from CONRAC Solutions, and Jeff Warner for PGAL are joining us on today. And should you have any questions at the completion of this, they'd be more than happy to answer anything that I may not be able to. With that, again, Chris Cobb, Manager of Engineering and Construction. Based on last month's update that we provided, myself and Brad, there were several items that were questioned and the board had asked about. First, I'd like to start with what we're going to talk about today, kind of where we're at. Site selection, how did we land where we were at? Currently, the schematic design, the status on that. And also there was questions about helices, their design and function. With that, I'll jump in to a slide that the board has seen a lot of times here, just kind of where are we in the process. Right now, we're in that second column, the dark blue column, phase 2, which is the design process. And in that process, we're in the schematic phase. That was schematic drawings were just provided to RTA late yesterday. And those will start going through us for review, additionally through the racks to provide comments back to CONRAC Solutions. I'd like to jump into site selection. There was a lot of questions how we ended up where we're at. So I put together kind of a show information here that takes us first with the master plan, where site was picked and goals that were identified back during the master plan, and what we were looking for in a site and how it was identified. There was a look for providing that additional parking for the public, flexibility for parking products, provide a CONRAC a space that would house all the public rental car activities, allow for that growth, design and build a facility that would look for that future growth as we hopefully come out of COVID and we see those in plane passengers coming back, and provide both that public and rental facility near the terminal. Additionally, part of that criteria in selecting the site during the master plan, what they were looking at was customer service. It was covered several times that they were looking for something that was walkable, provided that 20-year programming and really a 30-year facility that met those requirements of the rack sizing. looking at a site that would look at those costs that would meet the CSC levels as it was developed. Looking ideally, can we build it in such a way that is a minimal impact to our operations? Obviously, with any construction, as we experience many times right now, even on the Spaghetti Bowl, construction, there is an impact, unfortunately, to our traveling. I would expect them, but trying to minimize that as you go through it. Having some type of parity with the ground transportation and flexibility within that parking facility you make and future that you see with whether it's autonomous TNCs, taxis, et cetera. Additionally, when you're looking at that site through the master plan, is look at those site considerations where things may need to change. These were all items that in the site selection during the master plan that were identified. With that, everybody was asking what properties were looked at. So I really wanted to use this slide to show not only what properties that the master plan site looked at, but when Conrac was brought on that were looked at. The 4 properties you see highlighted in red were both identified during the master plan process and Conrac's process of looking at walkable properties. Additionally, Conrac also looked at the orange box up there where the TNCs and taxis were. There were several different iterations throughout the master plan process and the Conrac process that looked at a mix and match of using just one or 2 of these properties. Ultimately, both in the master plan and the Conrac site selection, they zeroed in one area. With that, the master plan process, their preferred alternative that they looked at is in the lower left-hand part of the screen where you see the purple and the green area. With that, when they determined this area with a master plan, that was a lot based on our current size. It didn't really understand, I believe, the information they didn't get with our master plan group was how they were operating and what capacity they were. So they identified that area alone. So with that, as Conrac came on and was able to get information from our racks and how they were operating and what levels of service they had and cars that were being rented, not only did they look at the master plan site, but additionally they looked at including the area where the existing QTA is just north of the garage. And that's where they zeroed in on this area. With that, in that site selection, Conrac's preferred site, it included the master plan site, but it also identified that the master plan site wasn't large enough to meet their demand and programming needs. The master plan site, as they developed it, would include the turnaround. The existing QT area would become some public parking with the decks built over it to service the racks. It would incorporate the various site considerations as things needed to shift and move in Reno airport operations. The intent was to bring back a little over 435 public parking spaces and create an additional 200 public parking places for us to use. It was going to prioritize being walkable from the terminal, create ready access to the baggage from the baggage claim and rack counters to those rental customers. And additionally, they would look at what that did with our circulation and traffic during the design phase, which we're currently in. It also met the rack's 20-year design needs. It was going to have 3 levels. Here again, at grade would be the QTA and public with 2 grades over it, including their rack parking needs, met their security needs. With that and selecting the site with the phase 1 process, they knew going into phase 2, there's going to be several cost considerations that they would be looking at, whether or not that would include moving walkways, bridges, ramps, floor heights. Additionally, looking at what relocation of facilities needed to occur and what those costs were, all trying to meet that CFC level, making it acceptable to the racks and here staff at RTA to make sure it's feasible. With the completion in that phase 1 with selecting that site, the initial design that was developed did not move Terminal Road. They looked at using the existing QTA area for that public parking. And then on the other side where the old cargo air facility was going to be the QTA and the fueling. And their intent was to build 2 floors over the new parking just north of the garage. And additionally, that deck would have gone over the existing terminal road. Returning customers would have come off of Terminal Way, where people renting the car would have exited onto the Terminal Loop Road into Plum Lane. My understanding when this was brought forward initially in the fall of 2019, there were several discussions as well as a public safety meeting. I believe some of the trustees were attended, and there were some concerns expressed about the deck over. The best example, I guess I could say, of the deck over, if you were to think about it, would be many of us that have traveled I-80 have probably traveled under Walgreens near UNR. That would probably be the best example of a deck over that you would be driving under. With some of the concerns that were expressed, Conrack went back to the drawing board and really had a phase 1.1, and that lands where we're at today with the current schematic design that Conrack and their design team has been working on and have gone forth with and been working with us here, staff at RTA, and we've been updating you on. It includes extension of Terminal Way and really makes it all one area of property. That you have the public parking on the ground floor, you have the helices with the QTA and the fueling station, and then deck overs that will be 2 floors of parking above for the racks. So that's where we've landed today. And again, I'd like to point out that schematic plans have been, and basis of design report were submitted yesterday to us as staff. We'll start going through that so that we can work through any questions, concerns we have, as well as the racks, and look forward to coming forth before you as members of the board in January with a workshop to discuss that. Next, I'd like to jump into, I know there was a lot of questions about the helices in our last meeting in October. In September, Chair Sperber, if you remember, and Trustee Carey, we met with you and Conrack and some of their design team to discuss it, and really had their team show us they're looking for a certain flow of traffic when they're servicing it, much different than the typical parking garage. They're looking for flows of traffic heading in the same directions and reducing those crossovers. With that, they felt that helices design best served their operations and would allow, if we had changes, say in those floors, that would still function for us if uses in the future occurred where R&O was using that for parking. This is your first level of what it would look like with returning customers and exiting new customers. Here's your second level, your third level, showing that your traffic flow is all headed when they do come into contact, they're all heading in the same direction. What I really wanted to show, which some of the questions I believe that were really centered on, is how will these function? What do they look like? This next slide kind of shows you their basis of design. Not only does it provide a width for a travel lane, but they're also looking at sizing this proportionally that allows for a breakdown lane, such that should something occur, you can still have the vehicles travel through here. Now with their schematic design, I haven't got it to get in there yet, but they were going to provide us templates, turning templates, so we can ensure that the size of vehicles are being able to make these movements, and we feel they're able to make them safely. But I really wanted to center on showing you kind of what this cut section looks like in an overhead so that you can see how that traffic would flow through these helices. And ultimately staff did here in engineering, had a better understanding of their intent, how to use it, and we did support them in their design and how this would function. With that, there was also questions about where have these been used in other Conrack facilities and what do they look like? There were some concerns on that. Here, I'd like to show you, this is in San Diego in kind of a nighttime shot and how they've developed it and tried to create some aesthetic, pleasuring look with the lighting that was done. Here's a facility at Austin and what this looked like. The next 2 facilities I'll show you are currently under construction. The first being at Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, and this design here. Lastly, this one here at Bradley, Connecticut, Bradley International Airport in Connecticut. So there's different ways and different features you can create, you can see in these looks that they're developing. And that's why just kind of want to give you an idea of how this can be seen differently in each of these designs. with that, that does conclude my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And again, Lori, if you can make sure that Miss Amy Barnes, Bob O'Neill, or Jeff Warner are in here as well, so that they can answer any questions that anybody has that I may not be able to answer.
All right, committee, questions, comments?
Mr. Cobb, in relation to the rental car customers, have we resolved the issues regarding the connection between the counters and the rental car area?
So Trustee Carey, I'm not sure what that conflict is, and I apologize for not remembering if I've heard this before.
We were asking for an elevated walkway between the rental car counters in the form of a pedestrian bridge to the floor where people would pick up their cars so that they wouldn't have to go outside.
Okay, Trustee Carey, now I better understand. Yes, staff had directed Conrack Solutions and their design team to ensure that there is a crossing there in the sky bridge and not doing anything at grade. I would expect as we dive into the schematic design that we would see this as a requirement for what the RTA directed them.
And will that connect for our parking customers, for them to connect to the north end of the garage from the baggage claim area?
That is another area of design that we talked about, not only the floor heights of future connection, not only for vehicular, but pedestrian. As we get into the review of the design schematic phase, I'm sure we will make sure that is a part of that function.
And you,
Chris and Trustee Carey, this is Jeff Weiner with PGL. I'm happy to answer that. Our schematic design includes two options, a single level bridge and a double level bridge to get from 2 to 3 or 2 to 2 and 3 to 3 if needed. And yes, we do have vertical circulation on the garage side so that you are able to access, whether it's if you do the one level bridge at level 2, and we do have an elevator there to go down to level 1 or possibly go up to level 3 and connect at those locations too. So it is definitely a multi-use bridge connection, Trustee Carey.
thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, Jeff.
Other questions, comments? Okay, I've got a couple very interesting earlier today, as you remember Ben talking about parking. It appears like what he was saying, that we're starting to find out of locals and needing parking spaces, the people, and he said all over the industry, are starting to say that, hey, we want to drive our own car and leave it to the thing. One of the comments on this thing, if I heard you right, this will only give us an additional 200 parking spaces with this design for locals. Is that correct?
No, sir. My understanding with this design, you're getting 430 spaces back approximately, and an
All
additional
right.
200. So it appears, and Jeff, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we're in the neighborhood of 600 plus spaces that will.
Oh, okay, and 600 places, and as you know, last year before the world changed for a short time, appears like we were bumping all the parking spaces that we could have. One of the things is, what percentage of our actual other incomes come from parking? And in the budget, just round numbers. I don't know if somebody's on this call that has an understanding of how much income we get from parking.
I would definitely look for somebody else to help me out with that answer. Cheers for
Yeah, I think you and I both.
Hi, Trustee
sure.
Ferber. This is Randy Carlton. I might be able to
Thank you.
provide some
Randy.
info.
Sure.
Good morning, everyone. In terms of parking revenue in total, I could tell you that we have
Right.
a budget expectation of $5,746,000 a year.
Okay. And in the future, and that's why I'm still kind of wrestling with the idea whether If we put this project in that thing, we're kind of too blocked on the north side there on additional parking. So as if we think the future actually increases, rather than have the rental cars take a bus and get the heck off site and on the site, is that true that this will kind of limit the additional parking we can put on the north side of the existing parking structure for locals?
That's a question, trustees Ferber, I'm going to have to defer to the parking operations. I don't know the answer to that. I can tell you that it's expected that there'll be a net gain of parking spaces as a result of this project. And that's the extent of my knowledge.
No, I'm sure you wouldn't know that. I'm just looking, if we do the project in this location, and I'm not looking for you, Randy. I guess I'm going back to Chris or Darren or somebody. I'm somewhat concerned if we're going to need, and we're all crystal balling into the future, but one of the things as Ben went through, it appears like even from when the master plan to now, it looks like there's going to be an increase, and it is revenue that we want. Are we being a little short-sighted, actually taking this area on that north side and putting in this? Are we limiting what we can do on pure parking in this area?
Chair Sperber, if you look at, and I tried to bring up the site that showed everywhere.
That's great.
You never say never, right? Money fixes anything.
Right.
Obviously, it really depends on how things develop out in the future. I know there's with the master plan plans for the future concourse to the north. What does that do with those properties north of that? If the cargo area does move, how you can physically move those spaces around. Obviously, it does, I believe, constrain you. You still have the area to the south, but I think you would experience more challenges in the north. But as an engineer, I would say never say never. Obviously, money does fix things. But how much money is that? Obviously, that's pure conjecture on my part. But it does, I think, create some issues if you were looking to do anything to the north.
Okay. Again, like I say, it's, something of the heart of us is the income that we get from parking. The closeness for parking of locals is one of my concerns too, and income. And it appears like it's actually increasing the percentage of people that arrive on this thing that are using their own cars. If that's what I pick up from Ben is, and it makes logical sense, the same thing that obviously people with rental cars don't like to take a bus around. Our locals don't want to use, and this is kind of a long-term trend, it sounds like, of some of these things. So before we go and approve something, I think that kind of study needs to be looked at. What is the impact of us locally, or let's say the airport? If you remember, some of my comments early in this project have been, is that they're building this right in the big center of our city. Are there impacts by putting this project here as far as costs? Are they included in these numbers that we're getting? Clearly, there's increases of certain items. Are there a lot of utilities that go under this existing area, and those kind of things? Could you just kind of address that item for me?
Chair Sperber, to my knowledge, and as I said, with the schematic design, we'll be diving into this more to see that. There is a number of utilities on the north side of the garage that will be moved with this project, in my understanding. Obviously, there's cost associated with that with any time you go underground. Those by far are usually the biggest unknowns in a project. Looking at a building and a structure, I think that's fairly easy for people to put numbers to and understand. It's every time you dig a hole, it can get a little dicey, obviously. With that and the base of the design report, we believe they have costs for us to look at. They've had Austin Commercial and Q&D. Thankfully, a local contractor that has had a lot of experience here on our airport and both airside and land side. I'll be interested to see and how that cost has changed, probably most likely since the original phase one. Obviously, the phase one that was approved by the board to move into phase two, those are sketches and you're able to apply things to it through the schematic process as you really come to better understand physically what has to move, where things are moving to, and what is being built. Those costs are refined. And you know, from my experience in the last 20 years, especially working for Mr. Carey, the city of Sparks, what we initially developed in a lot of CIPs on those back of the napkin type of development. Once you got to really putting the design together, unfortunately, some of those times those costs increase, just as you get a better knowledge of that understanding. And I believe Amy or Bob might be able to address that a little more, but that's what I've seen through the course of my career.
Right, Amy or Bob, I'm sure as you're starting now, getting a little more detailed in this phase two, you're looking at some of those impacts. Are those included? Are they going to be included in your cost? These additional costs for impact to the rest of our city with that logic I'm talking about?
Trustee Sperber, this is Amy Barnes, and Bob O'Neill, please feel free to jump in. But yes, we are certainly looking at all of the costs. And one of the things that the rental car companies have specifically asked is that we break out the costs of any enabling projects and other things that are being impacted so that we can see those, you know, as part of the overall budget, but also as each line item.
Great. So you're
and Amy, Trustee Sperber, I also wanted to say that we have been working. One of our biggest components of the schematic design and cost identification has been the existing utilities, whether they are existing to remain in place, rerouted, replaced, etc. And those costs are definitely included in our enabling projects, our new construction, and they have been validated by extensive survey and study from both the design team as well as the build team, including Q&D construction.
Okay, great. I don't want hidden costs later on. You know, we need to go with open eyes of what this thing, the impact of putting this in this location. Obviously, the closer you get this thing, for the more walkable, it costs more money and it impacts more operations on the thing. Okay, the next item on that thing is obviously, Chris, is as we're looking at this project, it appears to me there's going to be additional regular standard maintenance. There's going to be more asphalt for you on this thing. How does that impact, and is this additional cost that we will have to pay for, let's say, as that loop road, as it gets larger? Have you looked at those kind of costs, and are those included in this project or are they outside of this project?
So Chair Sperber, you're correct. As you look at this schematic design, the extension of loop road obviously increases the number of square footage of asphalt roadway that we will be the proud owners of. Just similarly, you would think of in a city, the subdivisions have built all that additional asphalt and utilities you become the owner of. No different here. We would become the owner of this once it's constructed. And have the long-term maintenance of that facility. Have not developed any cost at this time of what that future responsibility is. And with that, I think that's something we need to prepare to provide you at that workshop so that as a board, you'll understand more what we will become the owner of and responsible for, and kind of project out what those maintenance costs we could incur or see in the future. You would need to include this in your pavement management program, obviously, to look, make sure we're doing our best to keep that in a traveling manner that is safe for our public.
Sure, and that's one of the things I know Sean always brings up is, hey, there's costs of construction, but there's costs, right, Sean? As you guys have run cities, there's costs after construction, and those type of costs need to make sure that, and I'm trying to give some things as we get to the workshop of earlier, right, Sean, or some of these things need to be considered. And
your question is right on. We do need, as an agency at the airport, to make sure that we're looking at our cost implications both now and in the future. And I know Chris is well positioned to lead that effort.
right, and so obviously I want to kind of see that, how much that impacts us by doing this project this way. And what I understand is most of those costs are right under our dime as the airport, or not, let's say, in the gate as we're doing a runway or something where we go for federal funding. Is that correct? That these would be some of our costs and things there? Anyway, those are those kind of items. I see, Sean, you put up a finger there.
I just wanted to use an opportunity while this particular slide was on the screen to just raise an issue. I've been trying to get us to look at the pedestrian access to our airport as folks come from Terminal Way. How do they reach the terminal? In our most recent emergency that we had with the possible explosive device in the car, it was present when I left the airport that our passengers are still using walking in active roadways trying to reach the terminal. And I would just ask if we could look at this as a pedestrian safety project for the airport to work on with the rental car companies, because it is not a clear marked path of how we want pedestrians to get to the airport. I have observed without this structure, people walking in actual travel lanes with their bags, because when you close the airport, people are still trying to converge on it, or people from the hotels are still trying to get to the airport. And we just have not got a clear designated pedestrian plan for our facilities, let alone this facilities. If you look at the yellow line that's being shown there, that's probably not the best solution that you could have for pedestrians. And I think it's something for the airport team to kind of step back and lay this out. We probably are short some sidewalk in our existing configuration based upon the existing problems we have. But just make sure that we can invite people to safely get from the public streets to our terminal without crossing at mid-crossing points, or provide concrete sidewalks for them where it's a very clear path, because they simply are not arriving at our airport during the situations where we have these obstructions and they don't know where to go. So Chris, can you kind of maybe think about that with your team and folks to kind of decide what's the right direction to go now and in the future, because it's an existing problem which is exacerbated by the extension of this. Not that that's a shortfall to the rental car project, but we're just making it harder for the pedestrians. And so I just want to make sure we're looking at this from that user mode that is going to be coming to the airport, using their 2 feet, dragging bags. I don't want to see them in travel lanes. That's not a good solution. They're not clear as to where to even go at the present time, let alone when this structure goes in. So don't try to answer today. If you could sit down and just work the problem, plan the problem, and I'm sure you guys will have some great solutions.
And Trustee Carey, just to know you're spot on. We've had in the last couple of weeks, that has been some heartfelt conversations with staff and our contracting and design team. We've all identified that, and we are trying to work through that solution as you identified. It's a great concern, and locally it's a great concern. As you know, for some reason here in this valley, for some reason we don't have a lot of success with pedestrians and walkways. It seems to be, if you remember the last year and a half, it's not been very successful here locally throughout. And we have been talking as a staff and that Conrec and their design team, what to do here and how to try and provide something that safely gets a pedestrian to the terminal, because we are one of those unique facilities that actually has that pedestrian access. Many of your airports, most of which, at least even the ones I've flown into, don't. So I think we're kind of unique in that. And how do we do that in a manner that is going to be safe for the public if they are walking in?
Yeah, and it's very, very common for someone with a flight to panic, park their car wherever they can, and still attempt to reach the terminal. That's happened in Los Angeles, Las Vegas. It's happened at our airport as well. So I appreciate everything you're doing as professionals to look at this particular problem. It isn't associated solely with Conrac. I'm concerned about it in its current condition. So I appreciate you continuing to work on that and look forward to your professional recommendations. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I know that Amy was looking up some things as we text back and forth here. I know you want to talk a little bit about the costs, get back on the item we were talking about. And it sounds like we've unmuted Bob O'Neill. I don't know why we did that, but I guess it's okay.
Thank you very much, Trustee Sperber. I just wanted to quickly reiterate Chris Cobb's comments that the RTA staff have been very vocal about the pedestrian issues around the Conrac and around the airport. So Trustee Carey, you can feel confident that that is being represented on a regular basis and very strongly by the staff. Just quickly to Trustee Sperber's comments about the cost, I wanted to just let you know that as part of the financing model that we're using, the financing side of the house really requires a lot of detail around life cycle costs. We want to make sure that this facility is going to be well taken care of and well managed the entire time that it is in use. So we actually build a lot of that into the project budget. The actual O&M is separate, but the life cycle costs are included in the project budget. And so you'll see that as we work through the process, and hopefully that will give some comfort, at least on that part of the budget.
Okay, thank you. And Bob, did you want to comment anything on these?
So Bob will need to push *6 on his phone to unmute.
I think he's tried that, but it's possible that he's having more technical difficulties, and I know that he's having a hard morning with computers in Alaska today, so maybe he'll jump in.
And Sheriff Sperber, this is Chris, and I'd like to jump in with those costs and what you've raised as concerns. I would like to point out, and I appreciate, is that the Conrac team, I think, is their team that they put together with Austin and PGL. I appreciate, they've been great to work with, but I appreciate too that both Austin and PGL have picked some really good locals, not only in their design group, but picking the Q&D. That helps us in engineering, I think, have a confidence as we start to review the schematic design and the basic design report that'll have those in there, a better comfort and feel that they understand our costs locally. Here again, being where we're at, we're almost in the solid bowl with some of our costs. And it's, I've seen that missed before by outside agencies, and with them as a design team bringing on a lot of locals, I feel that we're going to be able to be a lot more confident in what is presented to us in those costs. So I just wanted to make sure that remind everybody that they do have a lot of local knowledge that they've included in there. But as we go through here, I think will give us some confidence and more comfort in what we see as presented.
Thank you.
Chair Sperber,
Yes,
can I make a few high-level comments?
I would love for you to make some, my friend.
And,
Go ahead.
you know, I'm keeping my powder dry here because I'm still studying this project, and the cake has largely been baked before I arrived. But I want to just point a few things out for you and the members of the committee, and that is next month at the December board meeting, our air service development team will bring to you an air service development strategy and an updated 5-year passenger forecast. It's aggressive. It is aspirational. It is a higher forecast than what is in the master plan and is higher than what Contract Solutions planned for. We're doing that because we're trying to study the effects of the pandemic and how are we going to rebound as a region. And I think it's going to be important for you to see where you think we may end up, because really you started this conversation out asking about parking capacity and revenue. Parking revenue is our number 2 revenue generator after airline revenues, and it's very important. This really is a question, this entire program is a question of landside capacity. And are we planning for enough landside capacity? And by landside, I primarily mean automobiles. And I don't necessarily care if it's a rental car or a TNC or somebody parking here. The question is, do we have enough capacity for all the cars that are going to want to access this airport facility? Because there is no light rail mode here in the foreseeable future. We do have some other mode options. We plan for bicycles and buses and whatnot, but the predominant method of access to this transportation facility will continue to be automobiles. What I think about is 1 year ago this month, it's been made very clear to me that we were out of parking Thanksgiving. We were leasing spaces across the street at a high school and shuttling people back and forth because we had reached capacity as an airport. I've been there, I've been in that situation before, and that's kind of your peak day, average month, right? That's as bad as it gets, but it's important to note when you reach that point. And it's not necessarily that raising parking prices, it doesn't necessarily change demand if consumers don't have a good alternative. So it's important to think about how many passengers were we at, and we were at about 4.4 million in 2019. In 2020, we're going to be probably less than 2. But we're watching this pandemic carefully. We're measuring how quickly we think we're going to get back to where we used to be. And I think we're going to be quicker than people might expect based on the infusion of growth that the pandemic is bringing to this region through a bunch of other economic indicators, many of which you are far more of an expert in than I am. So I'm looking at this trying to think, are we thinking big enough? We get 600 public parking spaces out of this project. Does that buy me 5 years of capacity, 8 years, or 2? It's hard to tell right now. Is that really enough? Is a 3-level garage enough? Chris will tell you, I've been pinging him pretty hard on this, that if that is as high as we're going on this garage, do we have the ability to go higher with it? I come from a place where we built a 3-level garage, and then we added 4 levels on top of it 6 years later. Very difficult, very expensive project, and dangerous, quite frankly. You know, I'm looking at all of this. I'm thinking about it. You know, we have a plan for our pre-security capacity that you will hear about soon with a ticket hall. We have a planning study for the gates and the concourses that is kicking off that'll provide for us the 20-year plan for capacity. This project in front of us is really the landside plan as it exists today. And we need to be sure that it is big enough and bold enough and meets all of our needs. When I first got here, I think there was some question whether or not the rental cars were thinking too big. And, you know, I think what we've seen through this pandemic is that their business has gotten stronger. We have the numbers to back it up. Our parking business has persevered well, and we are a rental car market in many ways because of the lake effect and the geographic size of our region. I also have experience in that, in many ways very similar to where I came from with the Oregon coast and the mountains and the gorge. The only way to get there is with your own car or to rent a car. And so I think we can have some security in that. These are demand markets that are going to continue to be strong as we grow in passenger count, that I don't think the rental cars and Contract Solutions are thinking too big on this. The question is for me is, are we accounting for enough of our other needs? And is this project going to solve that for us, or do we need to plan for additional projects? You may recall we were supposed to bring this to you this month. We needed more time as a project team and as an airport to make sure we're getting it right, to make sure we understand the pandemic effects on parking, on rental cars, on our business in general. And so we are getting some of that time. Contract Solutions have slowed it down. You know, they've had to put pencils down in some instances here in order for us to wait and have that conversation with you in January. We have more work to do between now and January. I've asked Chris and the team to look at some other wrinkles here so that I fully understand why we landed on this concept, as well as what our future options are if we choose it. I also have asked for additional financial analysis. Landerman Brown was a firm that we hired a year ago, less than a year ago actually, to do kind of an analysis for us of our demand expectations and the ability to finance it with the CFC revenue stream. Randy Carlton is arranging for us to reconnect with Landerman Brown. They wrote that memo and provided it for us in January. A lot has changed since January, in many different directions. A lot of what I'm talking about is what the future is going to hold because of the pandemic. I want to touch base and hear where they think we're at today, what they see for the rental car market, what they see for our particular market, and not only rental cars, but parking as well, and have that conversation with them this month and keep working with the team. And I say all of this just so you know that I'm not just hiding behind everybody afraid to speak. I'm trying to think big. I'm trying to connect this to our plan for the terminal building and the concourses and the gates and make sure we have a complete strategic vision of where we're going to be in 5 years. Because I think where we're going to be is potentially bigger than we realize based on what is happening in this region and the amount of growth that is happening because of the pandemic. Growth is accelerated because of the pandemic here, which is unique to us. And we have to account for that because whether they're growing in Fernley or Carson City or here in Reno, they are all our customers. That is our catchment area. Whether it's businesses or people working from home who are going to take a leisure trip or a business trip, they're our customers. And in January, we couldn't have predicted that kind of passenger growth and customer growth that we're going to really, I think, start to see realized here. So I know we're out of time. I just want you to know we're working hard on this. This is our landside capacity project. It's really important. And I'm going to work hard to keep it on track so that in January we can bring to you something that's really well thought out and we've answered all the questions. I'll stop there.
Oh, that's great. That's the thing. I didn't want to just go through and say everything, you know, and then all of a sudden in January, I'm making all these comments. I want to do it during the thing. I know you're thinking, and I don't mean to, you know, I just want to kind of throw these out as a board member.
I appreciate
we
it.
are going to have another decision. So no, I feel very comfortable. For reasons I felt very strongly of hiring you, and this is one of them, is understanding how difficult these decisions are.
Yeah.
They're not just like a little decision and you've viewed of other airports, and what you do wrong during the intermediate can be, you know, you can have negative value on something if you do it wrong to where you're actually pulling out and redoing. So I'm just throwing them now instead of waiting till workshop.
Yep, it's great.
All right, my friend.
That's great. Thank you, sir.
All right, does anybody else have any comments? Sean?
I just wanted to
Looks like you're kind of getting.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to thank Darren for his vision and look forward to him diving in further with his teams that he has at his disposal. And this is going to be a great project.
It is. Thank you.
All right, anybody else have any other comments? Chair, or Amy, do you have more that you want to say to us, or Chris, anybody on this subject?
Trustee Sperber, just
Right.
confirm the parking spaces, that conversation that came up earlier. So it looks like the current design has a total of 745 total spaces, 435 that would come back to public parking from the garage currently being used by the rental car companies, plus 310 new spaces.
Okay, so those are numbers. When I heard that number of 200 in the thing earlier in the presentation, they're saying, whoa, are we only getting 200 spots out of this thing? So essentially you're saying increased spaces with this is how much? 700 and what? What's the number?
745.
745. Okay, thank you.
Chair,
All
I
right.
have to leave the meeting.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chair, I have to leave the meeting at this time. Thank you.
Of course, and I know that another member of our Miss Ginoli had something that was at 11 also. So, but we don't have many more things to go over to vote. So thank you. Let's go on. I think we've kind of discussed this one. North Valleys is the next one, which essentially there's no update I get from staff. Next one is 5.4, which is ticketing. And they were saying not this month, let's wait on there. Item 5.5 is the runway. As you know, we're kind of in a winter shutdown mode, so we don't have anything there. All right, let's go on to item number 6. Do we have any comments from any members or requests to put on the next meeting? All right, hearing none. Next item is item number 7, which is a monthly status update. One of the things, does anybody have any other projects they want to bring up at this time, members? All right, being none, one of the things I wanted to say is that as we're looking at the agenda next month, I would like item number 7, which we just talked about, I would like to move that up before we have member comments and asking what's on the agenda. Seems much more appropriate if we talk about other projects if we want, because then somebody might say, hey, I want to put this item on. So if you look at next month of moving item number 6 and 7, so we get and talk about projects before we talk what we want to discuss or put on the future meetings. All right, next item is item number 8, which is public comments. Do we have any public or comments?
No, we have no public comments at this time.
All right, hearing none, let's go to the next one, which is leaving here. Does anybody want to make a motion here?
Move to approve.
Thank you. So we're gone, guys. Thank you very much,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.